Hello, everyone. This is John Jenkins, and I want to bring you the third and final installment of uh, the books that I read in 2017. Sorry, the books that I read in 2017. So let's get straight into it. I'm going back to number 12, which is Advances in Electronics and Electron Physics, number 26. And this is only the second reference book that I've ever read cover to cover. And basically it's a super complicated, super complex book where they teach you all these mathematical formulas dealing with electronics and electron physics. So I read that book cover to cover, and I didn't really understand it, but I will in the future. Okay, now I left off at 50. I left off at 50. So 50 was the EQ Leader by Stephen J. Stein, PhD, from September 28th to October 3rd. So now we're going to go to number 51, Etruscans, Italy's Lovers of Life by Time Life Books, from September 30th to October 11th. And I got really into ancient civilizations. The Etruscans lived in modern day Tuscany in Italy, and it's part of a book series called I believe Lost Civilizations. And basically, most of the civilization, most of the culture from that time period is lost to history. We'll never find out what most of it was about. And they even talked about how a lot of the art that we have from that time period was actually faked. It was created in the 20th century by scam artists and then sold off as if it was the original art from that time period. So a lot of the stuff that went on, we don't even know what went on back then, and we didn't even know the language for the longest time. But then we figured it out. I believe it was a mummy. They found a mummy, and on the mummy's wrappings there were these inscriptions, and they decoded those inscriptions, and that's how they figured out the language of the Etruscans. Okay. Real Estate, number 52, Real Estate Investing Basics by David J. Decker and George G. Sheldon, from October the 5th to October the 11th of this year. And but it teaches you the basics of real estate and getting properties, stuff like that. The different types of properties you can get, like commercial or residential. Basically, those are the two categories: commercial and residential. I guess you could say industrial too, but I guess that, yeah. I mean, industrial would be the third category, but they basically talked about commercial and residential and the different advantages, disadvantages of each. It talks about how to, manage your properties, how to hire the right people, and all sort of stuff. So, very valuable if you want to get into real estate. It's not my favorite real estate book from this year, but it's the first one that I've read. And the next one that I read is How to Build a Museum by Tanya Bolden, from October 13th to October the 15th. And basically, this is a book about the Museum of African American History in Washington D.C. and it talks about the entire history of how they had to work for decades to in Congress to appropriate the money, and then they appropriated the money, but the money, but they couldn't get the building finalized, and all this other stuff happened, and it was delayed, and then finally, I think, in George W. Bush's tenure, the museum was built right on the mall, the Washington Mall, at the end of the building, at the end of the section. They had this empty space, and they built the Museum of African American History on there. I've never been there, but it seems pretty interesting. Number 53, Number 54, What Does It All Mean by Thomas Nagel from October 13th to October 19th. This is a book about philosophy, and I had never read a book about philosophy, but this is the book about philosophy, and it wasn't what I expected. It was very disappointing. He sort of uses this very simplistic and basic method of determining philosophy. It was too simplistic. It really was not enlightening or anything. It didn't help me at all. And that's the thing. Is that you read a philosophy book, and the first thing you think is, oh, that really wasn't helpful. Well, it's philosophy. It's not supposed to help you. So yeah, that's what I read October 13th. Okay, so Home by Harlan Coben from October 17th to October the 21st. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's about these missing boys who went missing back in, I guess a decade ago, and they've just been found. I totally forgot that I read it, but it was very entertaining, very very engrossing, like I totally forgot that I read it, but I enjoy reading it at the time. Okay, so Mesopotamia, the Mighty Kings by Time Life Books from October 21st to October 31st. So this talked mainly about the efforts to take the original the original architecture from Mesopotamia and put it in museums around the world. And it also talks about Mesopotamian mythology, which was very interesting. So yeah. High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard from 10/28 to 11, from October 28th to November the 1st. Very helpful book, and I've read a lot of books about success recently, and they contradict themselves almost on every. They contradict each other on almost every page. But I mean, this one was really helpful, and it really resonated with me more than something like Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. This one seemed a lot more practical, a lot more doable, and it has a summary page, and that really helps a lot. I'm seeing a lot more books putting summary pages in the back. There was one in Real Estate Investing Basics. It had a summary in the back. No, not that one. it was the one with the summary in the back was another one, which I'm going to uh, talk about soon. But yeah, a lot more books are putting summaries in the back nowadays, and yeah. Lonely Planet Tokyo Encounter by Wendy Yanagihara. Lonely Planet Tokyo Encounter by Wendy Yanagihara, from November 2nd to December 13th. Now, this is a really small tourism guide for those who want to visit Tokyo in Japan, and it lists all the museums, the shops, the clubs, the restaurants, the bars, the parks, all the tourist attractions and stuff like that. And it gives you some practical history about that. And yeah, so that's what that book is about. Real Estate Wholesaling Bible by Than Merrill. I saw a Facebook ad from Than Merrill on Facebook, and because of that, I signed up for a free real estate class downtown Chicago. And Than wasn't there, but I got really interested in real estate, and I bought one of his books, Real Estate Wholesaling Bible by Than Merrill. It was very, I read it from November 14th to November 25th. It was very practical, very, he understood what I wanted to, what I really wanted to know about real estate investing. What I really needed to know, I should say. And it's a really thin book. It cuts out a lot of the extraneous information that is in the other real estate book that I read this year. And it's really specific to wholesaling. The other book had a lot of different, wholesaling. The other book had a lot of different categories, but this book is specifically wholesaling. And it was very helpful. It was more helpful to me than the other book. And I didn't ultimately buy any real estate, but I've got that on the back burner for the future. Okay, so best-selling book proposals from November 27th to December the 9th of this year. And this is the book that has a summary in the back. Basically, it talks about how, if you want to get, basically the point of the book is that if you want to get published nowadays, you have to already have a following. The publisher is not going to magically give you an audience. You have to already have an audience who is willing to buy from you. And yeah, so that's the point of the book. Number 61, Past Perfect by Danielle Steele. I really, December 13th to December 19th, I really don't want to spoil this one, but just I will say this, and Danielle Steele spoiled this part herself. It is a ghost story, and I know you're not used to reading a ghost story from Danielle Steele, but it's a ghost story, and it's a very entertaining ghost story. There's a part in the book that didn't really resonate with me. There's a part in the book that really didn't resonate with me, and it's about Bettina, one of the characters, Bettina, and it talks about it talks about her life after World War I, and that really didn't resonate with me, but it was I still enjoyed the book. It was a very good read. Yeah. And Camino Island by John Grisham from December 21st to December 25th, 2017. Took me 4 days to read. I'm sorry, I have to include the 21st, right? So it took me 5 days to read. 5 days to read, and Basically, it's a classic John Grisham. Actually, no, it's not. It's completely different format from a John Grisham novel, and even the ending is different. You know, if you're used to The Firm, if you're used to, what was that other one that I read? The Whistler. Yeah, if you're used to The Whistler, you're not gonna know who did this when you see Camino Island. So when I first saw it, I thought maybe when I first saw the title, I thought it was maybe a continuation of The Whistler, because one of the main characters from The Whistler, he was always on his boat and he was always traveling, and so I was like, maybe this is following that character to this Camino Island. I didn't know where Camino Island was. I didn't know it is actually in the continental United States, so it's not that exotic. So basically, it is a brand new format for John Grisham. I really did not. I read the book cover to cover, but it didn't resonate with me because it seemed a little bit too disjointed. I like my books to just flow from one chapter to the other, and this book seemed a little bit disjointed, but it was still a good book. Yeah. So, very entertaining. So that was 62 books I read. I read 61 separate books. So, on the list of 62, because I listed one of the books twice, so I read 61 separate books this year. So yeah. I don't think I'm going to go for the 60s next year because I've got a lot of long books to read next year. I have to read, hold on a sec. January 1st, tomorrow, I'm going to start this book. Which is the complete works of William Shakespeare. So it comes with this nice book artsy book cover, and I love that smell. It reminds me of grade school. So it's the complete works of William Shakespeare. It has his sonnets, it has his histories, his comedies, his tragedies, and it has 4 narrative poems. Okay. Yeah, and so I'm going to start this tomorrow, January 1st. It's going to take me maybe a month and a half to 2 months to read it because it's 1,200 pages. And so this is going to be the first book of next year. And I got a lot of big books this year. Some of them are pretty thin, but I got at least 3 of them are really, actually at least 5 of them are really thick. I got I bought my first J.K. Rowling books, so The Deathly Hallows and The Goblet of Fire. First time ever buying a J.K. Rowling book or reading one. And I never saw the movies all the way through, but yeah, I keep saying I want to get published, and if you want to be the best, you have to learn from the best. So, um, yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Goodbye.